You're gonna watch this awful show. We're gonna watch the awful show together. Yeah, good boy. Okay. Let me get. Okay, where? I'm still playing catch up on the latest episodes of Star Trek Discovery because I spent a week in Vegas. And of course, because went to Vegas, flew on a plane, got sick. So now that I'm fully recovered, I'm able to deal with Star Trek Discovery. And the third episode of season 5, Star Trek Discovery Quest for the Progenitor Stone, the Discovery goes to the planet Trill. Now, of course, you know, probably Star Trek fans will recognize Trill as a very important planet in Star Trek lore. Now, not because of the crew member on the Discovery, Adira Tal, who has a Trill symbiote, or Adira's boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, Gray Tal, who's a Trill initiate, guardian. No, rather because it was introduced in Next Generation and featured prominently as a main Trill character in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Jadzia Dax, played by the beautiful Terry Farrell, just wonderfully, for 6 years. And I'm just going to remember this because it's a lot better than Discovery. All right, now back to the mess that is this episode. I think it's really important to think about who's to blame for this. Who are the writers for this? Well, first off, apparently there are two writers, Kyle Jarrow, I think his name is pronounced, and Laura Wilkinson. Well, Mr. Jarrow is a Yale grad who's primarily known for his off-Broadway work and creating a CW show called Valor, which involved it's a military drama involving helicopter pilots going on secret missions. As far as I could tell from looking into Mr. Jarrow, he didn't have any military experience, so that must have been a real creative venture for him. He was also a co-executive producer for Discovery Season 4. Ms. Wilkinson is a Columbia grad who's known for a 2019 debut novel called American Spy, which is about a single black mother who is a counterintelligence agent for the FBI in the 1980s. Apparently, Obama loved the novel. So there you go. The two people responsible for this opus of an episode have no real TV credits and no science fiction background.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So what our two writers give us in this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, Episode 3, Season 5, Jinaal? Well, as with most Star Trek stories, we have a primary story, which is going to be the Quest storyline, and then the B story. The B stories typically involve, a more humorous storyline, or perhaps something more personal to one of the characters to give the viewer a little more knowledge about that character.
That's simple. That's simple.
Now, the Quest story in this case picks up from where we were last time. The clue that was found in the previous episode leads to the planet Trill. And apparently, it leads to a Trill who lived 800 years ago and was involved in tracking down the progenitor weapon with the Romulan scientist who started this whole thing. Apparently, that Trill is still alive, at least the symbiote is.
I understand. And frankly, I suspected as much.
But before Captain Mikey can meet with this Trill, she has to solve a riddle. Yeah, that's right. Because this is Quest Fetch, this is a live-action RPG.
You must answer the question. Where does the fourth point?
Honestly, this reminds me of something else.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
I'd much rather be watching Monty Python. Anyway, Burnham solves a puzzle and advances to the next stage of the RPG. She gets to meet the next NPC who has knowledge to give her to continue on the quest. So she, Book, Adira, and Dr. Culber all beam down to meet the Trill. So I get Adira going down because Adira is hosting a Trill and is going to meet Gray. That goes into B storyline. Book, of course, Book is Burnham's ex, so he follows her everywhere. And from what I could tell so far, serving as the action guy for this series. As for Culber, I don't know what that is going on with him. There's no medical reason for him to go down. Why does the ship's doctor need to go down? I don't know, he's just standing around, and Burnham says, hey, you're coming with.
And the Guardian should have records to help us find the current host. Ensign Tall, Dr. Culber, I want you with me on the away team.
I guess someone said, you know what? We haven't given Wilson Cruz much to do in the first couple episodes, so let's let him do something. Plus also, diversity.
And that could add to the diversity of the committee, right, Brad?
Now, this Trill host is pretty old. She's not able to make the journey to the clue. But Dr. Culber agrees to go through a process, a ritual called Zintara. And that was first actually seen in a DS9 episode where the prior lives of the Trill symbiote are passed on to the consciousness of someone else so that the current host can meet, interact, and learn about the past lives. So basically, this basically gives Wilson Cruz something to do, because otherwise I guess he's just standing on the ship. And he acts kind of quirky, very excited to be in a new body, which he comments about.
Wow, this guy really works out.
Yeah, that's Dom again. I don't like what I'm going to call modern speak and Star Trek. But he's willing to help. He just doesn't remember how to get to the coordinates of where he hid the device. So he says, let's just walk there.
Besides, I can't tell you how much I miss the feeling of a nice, long walk.
I get if you don't know the coordinates, you can't beam there, right? Okay, that's fine. But we do have shuttlecraft, right? Can't you get a shuttlecraft and from the air say, that's where I'm going? Guess not. So I guess we're just, this is, I don't know, their version of Lord of the Rings going to Mordor. Ultimately, Burnham, Book, and Jinaal get to the location of the clue, but turns out it's not going to be that easy to get the clue because apparently it's in a nest of giant plasma spewing bugs. Yeah, I really thought Helldivers immediately. First thing I thought. For some reason, Jinaal has taken off at this point to let Mikey and Book figure out the problem. Well, they start by, of course, drawing their phasers, and a fight ensues with the bugs getting the upper hand. Ultimately, because Burnham knows everything, she realizes that the bugs are protecting a nest of their eggs. So rather than engage them further, they back off politely and decide to come back later. Well, it turns out this whole thing was a test all the time by Jinaal. See, that clue was never there. In fact, he had it stashed off where he had run off to.
Proceed wisely, Captain.
So what was this all about? What was this all about? Well, because it's such a significant treasure, the Progenitor's weapon, we had to make certain that the person who gained the clue was worthy of the clue. And that, in this case, meant that the person had to respect life and try to understand it rather than instantly lash out against it. Who more worthy than Captain Michael Burnham?
Worthy inclusion.
Yeah.
Wrong.
So in the end, Discovery gets the clue and heads off to get the next clue. But don't worry, our bad guys for the season, Maul and Locke, aren't far behind. So yeah, overall, the quest storyline is extremely, rote, pedantic, obvious, and so much like an RPG, which does not work for storytelling. Again, I love RPGs. I've played RPGs for years, and it's great interacting with people on it, but it doesn't necessarily work for a storyline if you don't develop it properly. If it's being point 1, solve the clue, point 2, solve the clue, point 3, solve the clue. It's very repetitious and not interesting. So I think, again, as with a lot of this so far, this is where the main story fails. But we also have the B story, which, guess what? features 3 separate storylines. So yeah, this is basically the CW part of our story because that's, in my opinion, what modern Star Trek is. All about personalities, interpersonal interactions, and feelings, rather than an overall, story, morality, any true science fiction. So this week, again, like I say, we had 3 separate B storylines. One involving Saru and his fiancee Tarina. One involving Adira and Gray. And lastly, basically our new first officer, the only person who I'm kind of liking on the show so far, former Captain Raynor, now Commander Raynor.
I trust your quarters are satisfactory.
They're fine. A little smaller than I'm used to, but then again, I'm used to having your job.
So first off, Saru and Tarina. This was a waste, in my opinion, and really makes Saru look bad. Basically involves him settling into his new role as an ambassador, and his fiance's, political aide having concern that Saru's political decisions may negatively affect his fiance's political position. It's supposed to be dramatic, I guess, but it basically shows me that Saru apparently is very immature when it comes to relationships because he doesn't know how to balance being in a relationship while serving as an ambassador.
Duvin spoke with you, did he not?
He did.
It's kind of stupid, and it's a real waste of time. But it takes up, good portion of the B plot.
Complete waste of time.
So we got the Kelpian acting like a young kid trying to understand his emotions and balance it with his life. We then go to some actual young kids, Adira and Gray, whose relationship apparently has been on the rocks for a bit, just suffering from the fact that they're now in a long distance relationship, haven't seen each other in 6 months. They, of course, sit down and, Gray kind of says, we should talk.
Well, maybe there's some things we should talk about, too.
Yeah, we all know what that means. Gray's breaking up with Adira. But I kind of think Gray makes Adira break up with him or her, whatever the pronoun is. I don't know. Regardless, it is a very CW wrought scene with emotion.
I don't know if I can do this any other way.
So does that mean... Are we saying we're breaking up?
Maybe it's just, I don't care about these characters. But this is unnecessary. It slows down the episode and just makes it more of a jumbled mess.
Bit of a mess.
But the one thing that I did like, Raynor. I like Raynor. Maybe it's just because he's kind of being a prick. And feel maybe that this crew kind of needs someone to actually act like an officer as opposed to whatever the hell the ship is run like, which apparently doesn't have any sense of command structure or hierarchical authority.
Excuse me, who's in charge?
Raynor comes on the ship. Burnham instructs him that he's to get to meet the crew, and he decides to bring him in to have a brief little chat, which he really wants just to be, tell me about yourself in 20 words or less.
In 20 words or less, tell me something about yourself I couldn't read in your file.
Helping him along this little endeavor is who I think is obviously the most Starfleet of all characters, Lieutenant Cringe, Lieutenant Tilly herself, who's very upset that Commander Raynor doesn't have good emotional contact with the crew. And at one point, Stamets comes in very excited about a scientific discovery he made, which he explains to Raynor. Raynor's interested because, it may affect the crew, it may affect the mission. He delivers it, and when that's it, he dismisses him.
Do you have any more data to share?
No, I guess not.
Then your 20 words are up. You're dismissed.
Which is the way it should be. Well, who's upset? That's right. Lieutenant Cringe is very upset.
Okay, what?
What?
I haven't seen him that excited in so long. Why did you have to shut him down like that?
This is stupid to me. This is stupid to me. But I knew it was going to come. I knew it was going to come because the only person acting like anyone with any military bearing or recognizing the fact that this is a ship that should have command structure is going to be put in his place by this somehow Make-A-Wish Starfleet officer.
It's like she's fucking 5.
Who's more concerned about everybody's feelings. That would be great. When the ship is under attack, when we're all concerned about everyone's feelings. Again, this to me is why Star Trek Discovery and all the modern Star Trek is missing out. They're prioritizing feelings and fake interaction over storyline. You go back and look at traditional Star Trek, you learn the characters through the missions, through the stories, not this overly wrought personal interaction. In fact, I went back. I looked at the numbers on this. The quest for this whole episode, this was, I think, a over 50-minute episode. I think the quest portion accounted for at most 20 minutes. The rest of it was all this interpersonal bullshit. This is what Star Trek has become. You know, what's happening this week on CW Star Trek? Who's dating who? Who's having an emotional problem? Who needs a hug?
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
This was a mess of an episode. Complete crap fest. I'm certain it's going to continue. I just wish we could go back to one that I was bored with, like episode 2. Anyway, questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click all the buttons. You know which ones to click. See you next time.